We know from the laws of thermodynamics and physics, energy is neither created nor destroyed, only transferred from one form to another. We know from the field of neurobiology, that neuroscience, that the brain, the whole body has an electrical field, but the brain has the most complex electrical field in the body. So when we die, that electromagnetic field in our brain, which is our soul or consciousness, it doesn't die, it doesn't disintegrate because it's energy. It transfers to another dimension, another frequency. And so the term the electromagnetic soul bridges the divide between faith and science, because as you indicated, we are pure consciousness, a spirit or a soul that is eternal electromagnetic energy, henceforth the term the electromagnetic soul.
So let me put that into a simple analogy. So like I have a smart TV hanging on the wall, right? And so when I put on the smart TV, it picks up a frequency of whatever I want to watch. And I'm there on that frequency, watching that show, Ozark or whatever, for the moment. When that TV dies, when it doesn't work any longer, those shows and those frequencies are still out there. They're just not being projected through my television, but they are still out there all around us. So that's kind of how I also think about the frequency aspect. So when our body dies, it just means it's elevated to a higher frequency. Would that be somewhat accurate?
Absolutely, because you think about it, your smart TV did not create those shows, nor did it create the electricity that not only made the TV work, but enables you to view those shows. It merely hosts it on a temporary basis. So when the TV ceases to function, that data isn't lost. It merely returns to the afterlife frequency of Netflix or HBO or Showtime or whatever you're watching. But this is not a theory. This is a law of physics, that energy is neither created nor destroyed, only transferred from one form to another.
What's your thought about black holes where it's supposed to destroy energy? That should not be possible? Do you think that is true? What's the deal with black holes? Have you ever had a discussion with your scientist friends about that?
Oh, I have. And black holes are so fascinating. They're scary, they're fascinating, they're intriguing. We've actually been affected by black holes within the last few years. For the benefit of the listeners who may not be familiar, a black hole is a star which is burned out and it collapses into itself. And so what it does is it creates such an intense gravitational field, it can bend light, it sucks everything into it. And the big question is, what is it? What exactly does it do? Is it just a concentrated form of matter, or does the black hole, when it collapses, create a portal to another dimension? So maybe the energy quantum leaps from one dimension to another. So there's a lot of debate as to what it is. So back in 1916, Albert Einstein theorized that there were gravitational waves, and that gravitational waves would be caused by two black holes which collide. Now, that's a tremendous amount of energy. And so that it would create these ripples in space-time that could affect everything. So in 2016, LIGO, the Laser Interferometer Gravitational Observatory, detected gravitational waves. So Einstein's theory then became scientific fact. Now, here's the best part, Bob. The gravitational waves that it detected were tracked to the collision of two black holes 1.8 billion light years away.
Wow.
Now, let's get an idea of how far that is. A light year, that's the distance light travels in a year, is 5.3 trillion miles. So let's multiply 5.3 trillion by 1.8 billion. I tried to get the actual figure, because I'm always curious about these things. And my computer gave me a number, and the number was to the 21st power. So basically, the eventual number had 21
God.
zeros.
I was going to say my abacus mark doesn't go that far, so I couldn't do that.
No, and I can't even get my computer to display it. So I'm going to keep working at it because I'd like to, I'd like to get the number with all 21 zeros for one of my lectures. But the thing is, what does that tell us? Well, first off, that Albert Einstein's genius is ratified yet again. Secondly, that we're all interconnected. Now, we hear that a lot. You hear that the new age, we're all interconnected. All right, and which is true. We know from quantum physics that everything on the subatomic level is energy. We're all energetically interconnected. We know from the great spiritual teachers, we're all brothers and sisters. We're all interconnected. We're all cells in the body of God. But we were actually affected by something that happened 1.8 billion years ago. And the energy that resulted from the collision of those two massive, massive black hole, the energy that was thrown throughout the universe, it affected us. So I think that that's really fascinating. I hear, astrologers and all that, the stars affect us. Well, in this case, they really did.
Yeah.
So we have to keep an open mind about all this stuff.
No, that's great. I had a question too about the afterlife frequency. How wide is that band? And I asked that question because I've had guests on the show that believe like the afterlife is many different like locations or different levels, So is the afterlife frequency, is it kind of different for every being? Is it like a wide band of several channels, but it depends on how far your soul has evolved? How is the afterlife frequency constructed based on your hypothesis?
I don't know if anyone has the answer. And we have to realize that we're all getting glimpses of it. When I say we're all the people who study this. So nobody has all the answers, but we do have insights. But we know that everything vibrates. And the afterlife frequency, think of our world as AM radio. All right. We use frequency, vibration, and we're vibrating at a lower frequency than the afterlife frequency, which is, vibrating at a much higher rate. And it appears, based on the thousands of readings, spirit connections that I've made between people here and loved ones in spirit, it isn't just one big, okay, we're all together. I mean, they are all together, but there's different frequencies within the afterlife frequency. And the best way I can put it is people like Osama bin Laden and Adolf Hitler go to a much different frequency than a St. Francis of Assisi, a Gandhi, or a Mother Teresa. But it's also not a static state. So you can be, have led a negative life and you go to the other side, to the afterlife frequency, but you don't necessarily have to stay in that frequency. You can evolve beyond it. But to completely understand it, I think, is beyond our brain's finite capacity of perception.
Totally understandable. But I think the afterlife frequency and the hypothesis you're putting out there is brilliant, and it is something we can at least get our mind around. I heard on one podcast you mentioned that our soul is like a drop of water that leaves the material world to go to the ocean of souls on the other side. Do we become aggregated into this greater ocean, or do we both maintain our identity and are part of the greater one synchronicity? Are we both at one time, or?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And that is such a great question. And that's the analogy that I use, is that our soul's like a drop of water, like you said. And when we die, it plunges into the collective consciousness, the sea of souls. But that drop maintains our individuality. But now we're linked to other souls that are linked to other souls that are linked to other souls, so on and so forth. And that's why during spirit communication, spirits can come through and they can project information, transmit information to me or, to whoever the recipient is, that far exceeded the scope of anything they knew here in this world. It also explains why spirits can perceive future events. And if you'll indulge me for a moment, a very, very basic understanding of quantum physics is, we know from science, Bob, we all had to study this in school, everything's made of molecules. Then molecules, in turn, are made of atoms. Atoms are made of electrons, protons, and neutrons, which in turn are made of a smaller particle, which is a quantum. ergo quantum physics. And that's pure electromagnetic energy. Now, for the physics buffs out there,